Hello to all my innies and outies out there, and welcome to today's new Severance video. We are back with our weekly theory video where I discuss some of the big talking points after the most recent episode, and episode 5 of Severance left us with some really interesting theories for us to discuss in today's video. We're talking about the mysterious dentist at the beginning of the episode, we are discussing Irv's secret call and who's on the other line, and also calling back to a theory from episode 4, and lastly, what's going on with any Mark S and his change in attitude. So much to talk about in today's video, so with that being said, no big words will be used from this point on, and for your own safety, please use the paper clips correctly. Let's discuss some crazy theories from episode 5 of season 2 of Severance. Alright, so keeping the tradition alive, let's talk about Mr. Seth Milchick briefly. So based on his willingness to allow the innies to have a funeral for Irv, and based on his review, he seemed to be the only person with upper management authority to actually care and treat the innies like humans. Well, at least in his eyes, he thought that he was much less cruel than Cobell. Until the tail end of this episode, which it looks like Seth will be going back to the basics, and they want him to be on demon time as we saw him literally cross a line with Mark S in the elevator. My question is to all of you is, after addressing the paintings yet again with Natalie in this most recent episode, but then telling Mr. Drummond he's tightening the leash, do you all see Seth making a turn on Lumon by the end of the season, or has that door closed and he's going back to being Lumon's enforcer? Now with that out of the way, let's discuss our mystery guy that opened this episode. Now I shared my wow theory in my latest breakdown on that doctor potentially being Keir Egan, and it looks like I was way off. As noted in the closing credits, the actor who played the character is Robbie Benson. Now the show credits don't have him listed under a particular name, but if you go over to IMDb, they credit him as the doctor. Now a lot of my comments in my recent video and other comments I've seen believe that the doctor will be revealed to be Bert's husband, Cecil Fields, but according to what I just shared, Fields is not the doctor unless they casted Robbie to throw us off as an audience, but I highly doubt that. Now we might not have to wait for long because it looks like he's listed to appear in the next episode. Now sticking with Fields for a second, we briefly saw a shot of Fields in the season 1 finale, and he was played by actor Arthur Brooks, who's seen now on the screen. And funny story, John Noble was supposed to play Fields in the season finale but was unavailable to shoot that day, but they were able to officially have them join in on the new cast of season 2. Now I also saw that some people thought that the doctor was maybe Petey or a reanimated clone version of Petey, but again, based on Robbie listed as the doctor, I don't think it's going to be Petey as well. So now that we know who isn't going to be playing the doctor, let's get into the conversation about what role this doctor can play in this actual story. Now, I have my thoughts about the dental equipment, but I much more prefer the theories that you all shared in the latest video. For example, we have John Locke, who said it looks like the person with the dentist tools is carving heads out of the watermelon using the same equipment, and that the carts are identical. I can definitely see those tools having their hand and creating that Irv watermelon head. Let's take a look at what Joe had to say about it. They said that the dental equipment has to be in connection to the wall of smiles in the perpetuity room. Now, for those who don't recall what Joe is referring to, this is what's called the Lumon legacy of joy that we saw back in season 1. Now in that scene, Irv told Helly to look, each of these is real smiles from someone on the outside. Someone Lumon Industries has helped, and they rotate these. The true number of smiles may well be in the millions. And Helly's response was, so what are we, like some dental company? We know that Lumon has many different interests, and being in the dental profession isn't surprising. But I think Wilkins figured it all out, as they suggest that maybe the mysterious guy in the hallway is Tim's neighbor Wilson from Home Improvement. They've cracked the case. That's who it is. Congratulations, Wilkins. You have the best comment of the day. But let's go further and maybe even darker. I think this next person is definitely onto something, as Lexi says. Could the man with the car possibly work at the morgue where the body swapping is happening? He needs dental tools to remove teeth so that people can't identify via dental records. Now, following up that amazing comment with what Paul had to say, dental equipments are to alter Gemma's teeth so the authorities can't identify her based on the dental records. Now, tying in what they were saying into something that was mentioned by Miss Wong in the episode about the bereavements being used for the innies who died on the floor.
I thought bereavement events were for innies who die on the floor.
Could this mysterious dentist or doctor be extracting the teeth from the dead employees or from those like a Gemma who allegedly died in a car crash? Are they taking the teeth from those victims so they can't be identified by their dental records? This is exactly why I love this show. I love interacting with you all, reading your comments, because you all have some really great stuff. So just to recap, we know that Robbie is credited as the doctor, and according to IMDb, he will be seen again in episode 6. Now, actor John Noble will appear in episode 6 as Bert's husband, Cecil Fields, and as of right now, I believe there's a pretty low percentage chance that he's the same doctor or will be revealed to be the doctor, and the same goes for Petey in my personal opinion. So with all that being said, leave your thoughts in the comments below on the doctor and what their role would be moving forward and your thoughts on what they're doing with that equipment. Now, we talked about Bert briefly, but let's talk about Irv going to his house for a wine and ham dinner, but more importantly, what's going on with Audi Irv? Now, before we talk about Audi Irv, let's talk about any Irv, and was it just me or did you all miss him in this week's episode? Seeing the funeral just reminded me of all the terrible stuff he's recently gone through. From obviously losing Bert, the love of his Innie's life, then fast forwarding to waking up in the worst team building experience and nobody believing him about Helly, and then you add into the mix that the man got fired not once but twice and all in like a week's time. Look, I think we all can collectively say that we miss you, Innie Irv, and we hope you're doing well, but let's get back on track and talk about Audi Irv. So the mystery right now is, who is he talking to or leaving messages to on the payphone? Now, I've said it in the past, and a lot of you all think the same thing that I'm thinking, that it could be Ragabi, but I've also seen people believe that it may be Cobell or maybe even Seth. But after seeing so many PD comments being the doctor in the recent breakdown in my comment section, it really got me thinking, what if Irv is calling Petey's Audi? Now, we assume that Petey went to Mark first because they were so close as Innies at Lumon, but who's not to say that Petey didn't go to Irv first? Now, the biggest issue with that is you would think that Irv would have known that Petey died, but before debunking my own statement within seconds, it could make sense to whoever he's calling because they're not picking up the phone, and that would make sense because we know that Petey's dead. But putting the whole phone situation aside for a second and getting into a follow-up theory from episode 4. Going back to the dream that Innie Irv experienced, and we spoke about that in my breakdown of that episode, but I recently rewatched that episode the other night and it got me thinking a little bit more about that particular scene. Remembering Irv connections to the Navy and all the things we saw in that trunk of his in the finale and connecting to the Montauk file that we saw in his dream. Again, quick reminder that the Montauk Project is said to be conspiracy theories that dates back all the way to the 1940s. It was said that they were a series of United States government projects conducted at a Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station for the purposes of developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, including time travel. Now, the alleged subjects reported recovering repressed memories of torture, which was in direct result of the research teams trying to disjoint their minds. Now, it's been long believed that Irv is seeking revenge for his father, or at least a person he's related to. Now, assuming that the picture that we saw was a picture of Irv's father, was he maybe involved in the Montauk projects conducted by Lumon? Was he maybe a researcher or a scientist, or maybe a test subject himself? Which could give Irving a potential connection to those who believe that he was on the phone with Cobell, who is also potentially involved in investigating or avenging on behalf of a mother of hers, or at least a family member. Does Irv believe that Lumon was behind the Montauk project, which became a big cover-up? Let me know what you all think about Irv in this week's episode. Who is he on the phone with? What do you all think about my Montauk connection? And will we be seeing any Irv by the end of this season? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Now, the last theory I want to share with you all in this week's video involves Mark's attitude change and his personal ties with Cold Harbor. Now, before we get into Mark, I want to talk about and discuss a potential tie-in into Helena Egan and her 4 tempers maybe being controlled and manipulated by Lumon.
Medical team says your tempers will rebalance quickly.
Good to hear.
Some residual trauma is to be expected after such an ordeal.
So the medical team said that her tempers will rebalance soon following her traumatic incident at the retreat. So in my mind, it's to be believed that Lumon is doing this pretty often, where they manipulate her 4 tempers and balance them to meet the standard or the scale set by Cure Egan. Which, if true, this may add another layer to her character and add a certain level of sympathy for her. Reason I say that is, if Helena's tempers have been altered and balanced as an adult, it's safe to assume that it's been that way since she was a child, and she's really never had an opportunity to be her own person, and it really makes her Innie and Audi experience way more complex. Now, bringing it back to Mark, in episode 5, we saw his attitude change and he was acting more differently and more like his Audi. Could that have something to do with his reintegration? Yes, but let's also consider this. We know that the microdata refinement's job is to...
Oh, you mean putting the numbers in the thing?
Refining.
Right.
Yes.
But the working theory online is that they're secretly balancing the 4 tempers of people in Lumon's control, refining their behavior to become more perfect in the eyes of Kier. Now, we think that the Cold Harbor file is connected to Gemma, which I definitely think that is the case and there's some relation there. But what if Cold Harbor is for any Mark? What if he's 15% away from having his tempers fully balanced like Helena? Could his recent change in his attitude be less to do with his recent experience with being reintegrated, but more to do with him altering his personality to be more like Kier? Now, to be clear, I definitely feel like the change in attitude for Mark is more to do with the reintegration program, even thinking about the line he said to Milchick in the elevator and how it was delivered more like the Audi version of Mark, and especially with his tone.
Whatever you say, Mr. Milchick. Praise Kier. Who's in there?
Which I'll end by saying this. Is it possible that Lumon knows that he's reintegrated and that somehow plays into their plans overall? I think that's a fun place to end this week's theory video. So with that said, share your thoughts about everything we discussed in this video, and please keep sharing your super creative, detailed theories in the comments for more videos just like this. Now, if you haven't already, please check out my breakdown of episode 5, where we talk more about the situation that's going on with Any Mark, everything that's going on with Irv and the funeral, and the message that Dylan received, and so much more. So check out that video in the description of this very video. Now, of course, I'll see you all soon for episode 6. Now, if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. Consider sticking around, checking out some other videos, and consider subscribing to the channel. Now, of course, if you all enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, share this video, and if you want to take the support even further, consider joining my channel memberships today. Remember, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all in the next video. And also remember,
Have a restful evening.